I totally agree that the sort of wokeism of the past 20 years has created, for example, the Fuentes movement. I mean, I talked about that openly on the show on Monday and in the piece that I wrote for the Wall Street Journal, is that basically the sort of woke left idea that white Christian men in particular were the scourge of the earth and thus had to be extirpated from public life, or at least disadvantaged in public life.
Welcome back, my beloveds, to the Nissim Black Show. Always a pleasure to be with all of you. Right now, Christians, you are under attack. You are under attack. Now, it's not just us Jews. Jews, we're very aware of what is in front of us right now. We are very aware that we are being hit with anti-Semitism, or anti-Jew, or Jew hatred, I should say, because I'm hearing people so tired of hearing anti-Semitism. We'll just call it what it is. We'll call it Jew hatred. That's what it is. So, in addition to that, the Christian world, unfortunately, is also under attack, but it's happening in a different way. You see, the Christian world, you're being attacked in the sense that people are infiltrating and trying to actually reshape what Christians have believed for many, many years. Unfortunately, most people are not paying attention to what's actually happening, meaning they literally are just not seeing what's going on as these things are happening. And we're seeing it with the Nick Fuentes, the Tucker Carlsons, or the Candace Owens, and we're starting to see that people will pull out religion at the time when it's very, very appropriate, or when they want to use it in a sense to sort of urge people to move in a certain way, but they don't really live that way. And that's what I'm talking about today, like of being under attack. You're being under attack because people are infiltrating and acting as if they are Christians, but then you see them do things or say things that are actually against the Bible. One of them is the land of Israel. It's like it has been traditionally understood, at least here in America, for a very long time. I'm not talking about at the beginning, the foundations of the church or the church fathers, or even at the beginning of Protestantism. I'm not talking about that. From dispensationalism on, and as this thing has definitely spread into the movement, I would say, of those who are sola scriptura, that go back to the Bible and allow it to give it an interpretation, as opposed to reading in an interpretation or coming up with a doctrine that is not actually in front of your face as you're reading it. Now, of all people to talk about this, I'm going to bring in Ben Shapiro, who's Jewish. He's not a Christian at all, but he has very important points, and he obviously works, he's surrounded by Christians all the time, but he has a very, very important outlook that should not be ignored right now. And I think that it's important for all of us to listen to this, even if you're Yid, if you're Jewish at the same time, to understand this, because I think the more and more we have clarity of what's going on right now, then we'll know basically where to put forth our energies. But the problem is right now, I think people don't understand where to put forth their energies because they don't understand how they're being attacked.
I totally agree that the sort of wokeism of the past 20 years has created, for example, the Fuentes movement. I mean, I talked about that openly on the show on Monday and in the piece that I wrote for the Wall Street Journal, is that basically the sort of woke left idea that white Christian men in particular were the scourge of the earth and thus had to be extirpated from public life, or at least disadvantaged in public life by the sort of Ibram X. Kendi. The only way to fix the injustices of the past is to engage in injustices in the present. Like, I can see why that would drive a sort of white Christian identitarianism. I think that in order for that identitarianism to take place, it can't really be a Christian identitarianism, because Christianity, last I checked, and again, I'll let others who are more expert in this topic than I speak to this, is a system that distinguishes neither Jew from Greek nor slave from master. Right? I mean, the idea is that all are equal it's about individual equality was one of the key functions of Christianity. So you have to come up with kind of a pseudo-Christianity where, certain people are superior to other people. And I think that that's a really negative thing, which is why you've seen some systemic immunity to it among more traditional Christian groups, actually. But I think that the move that you see, it is understandable, but the normal curative to woke should be meritocracy. And that's a hard argument to make these days. I mean, again, because meritocracy has an inherent suggestion, which is if you don't succeed, maybe it's at least partially or largely your fault.
And I think that's important. I think it's so huge to be able to think about what is the actual cure. Like you said, it's easy to diagnose a problem, but to be able to give over a cure, a prognosis, is much harder to come to. And this is what I'm talking about. It's a major, major attack from people not being biblically sound and not actually reading what the Bible is. So therefore, you have a lot of people who are not, they're just not well versed in basic understanding. And that was the thing about Charlie in particular. Charlie was big on principle. He was big on biblical principles. He was big on values. He was big on these things. Charlie understood how important it was for the family, for the movement of the base, for the movement of the right. That was what differentiated the right from the left. It was morals and values and ethics, as opposed to complete anarchy and Marxism and wokeism, whatever. All these other isms that are not at least biblical. And so I think that's where Charlie stood out. That's where the movement, at least you could say, was headed. And then unfortunately, as we're seeing right now, especially recently, we are seeing a attempted hijacking of the movement. And so the place that people are going to, because they already know they got the Muslim world. This is what I'm trying to tell you. They already know. Nobody can explain how you have radical Islam and you have the radical left getting together, right, behind these principles. The main way that they could get America to be divorced even of itself is that they have to be able to attack the Christians. That's why there's linkages between Tucker Carlson, as they've been saying, Tucker Carlson and Qatar and all this other back end when all of a sudden Sharia law, just this whole entire, outlook has completely changed. And all of a sudden, at the same time, he's become super Christian, about his Christian faith, not about God, but just about Christian. You'll never almost hear anything about actual genuine relationship with God. You will always hear about God in a way of saying, I don't understand why Christians are so pro-Israel. So if they could get the alliance basically between Christianity and Israel to be broken off, then if they're able to do that, then they're going to be able to take over the country. And unfortunately, it looks like they're moving along very, very fast. I want to roll another clip of the Daily Wire guys, shortly after Charlie was assassinated, that they were there, donated $1 million to TPUSA. Let's roll that clip. Hey, right now here in the land of Israel, our children are facing two battles. Not only the battle that has them running to the safety rooms, but also the war inside of the classroom. At Kol Koreh, they help children with dyslexia and other learning disabilities find their voice and their confidence. But today, unfortunately, they've already been turning away families, and these are families who desperately need their help. These kids, under the pressure of war, now face the possibility of losing the one place that helps them to learn and to grow and to believe in themselves, and we cannot let that happen. This is our chance to stand with Israel in a very real and tangible way to help keep these children learning, and even in the darkest times. So please go to kolkoreh.org right now and give whatever you can. Your support will go a long way, and it will help change a child's life for sure.
I know we at Daily Wire, we trust you at TPUSA to do it. I mean, that's really the answer. We're willing to provide, and we are providing, any level of material support, any level of support on the ground, boots on the ground, helping you to do what Charlie would have wanted to be done here. And I think that the reason that everybody trusted Charlie, the reason we're all mourning Charlie, is because nobody did it better. You spelled out two of Charlie's goals. You said, he wanted to bring people back to Christ and bring people back to church and back to biblical values. And he wanted to keep the MAGA coalition together.
And expand it.
And the question is how you do that. And the answer is you focus on the first, and the second is a byproduct. Okay, the answer is that, as Matt says, you have to unite around something. And yeah, we can unite in the short term around the fact that there are a bunch of people who hate our guts and want to murder us.
Yeah, that will work only for a little bit. Right? It's only going to get us going. And I'm telling you, as a Jew who lives in Israel, trust me, you will get united. Terrorist attacks, horrible things, October 7th, whatever. We will be united for a little bit. But for long term, that is not going to be the thing that keeps the party. It has to be something principle, something that's a rock. It has to be some type of truth that doesn't move. Because whatever it is that you surround yourself about, if it moves, if it is a movable thing, meaning that it only comes periodically, it may sprout, it may be here, may not be here, then you will not be able to build any type of coalition, nothing solid, nothing, foundational up on that thing.
Which, of course, is true. But long-term unity, big movement change, which is what Charlie was really trying to drive, and why he went to talk to people who disagree, is about building around those core values. And so the long-term vision, yeah, we'll have our petty squabbles, and yeah, some of those squabbles will be more than petty, but the long-term vision has to be built around those original biblical conservative values that Charlie stood for, things like the Bible, things like free markets, things like family, all those things are things Charlie stood for. You got to build the coalition around values.
because the left doesn't have any. I know Ben didn't say that, but I'm just saying ultimately what happened. I'm not saying the left in general, but the fringe that took over the left, that the new identity of the left, of this progressive wokeism, just completely vile, degenerate, party that it has become because it allowed itself to be taken over by these extremists. That's the one thing that differentiates us. And if we're able to appeal to the average just human who just wants to live a good life, that wants to, have true happiness, the traditional human, right, of who your fan base is going to be, you cannot go outside of that tradition. You cannot go to these crazy extremes and be a groyper. That it's not going to work. And this is what Ben is saying here.
Because we can't build it around the man, but we can build it around the values that he left behind and that he spent his entire life fighting for. And we couldn't be, frankly, more honored to join you guys as much as we can in the fight.
Thank you for that, and thank you for donating the Daily Wire $1 million. Breaking news on this show. Thank you guys for honoring Charlie so well today. God bless you.
And I think that's the biggest thing here, is realizing that when there's a war, when there is a battle, that a person is equipped for the war. Understanding who it is, understanding who your enemy is, and understanding, what it's about. And I've been seeing that. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see. There's other, like I said, I've mentioned it before, there's other creators, that I have seen, and other pundits and other people that I've seen that you could tell, even in politics, most people are not really paying attention to what's going on in politics. The people that are actually connected, that are real faith people, they can't help to talk about it. When a person has a relationship with God at any level, and I'm saying whether they're Jewish, not Jewish, whatever the case is, Christian, whatever the case is, the person doesn't talk too long without it coming up, because it's a matter of means. It means something to the person, right? As opposed to when you see people become Hallmark Christians and they pull it out for a specific purpose, as a lot of these guys are doing, you can see straight through it. Any person that actually believes. So a few days ago, I actually had this. I had a clip from a young man. I didn't know what his name was, but he was a brother, and he was actually following up to Ben, and he said something else. And I have actually a podcast that I did a while back. I'm going to try to tag it here in the description. You'll probably see it at the end of this video also too. A podcast where I was basically going through Bible. I'm going through biblical verses showing why it's important for Christians to not be derailed by all this new things, or supersessionism, or a replacement theology, of all these other ideas that are not biblical. Right. So I'm talking to a crowd of people who are obviously sola scriptura, that look at the Bible and see what it is, not interpretations. Right. Not allowed to go with the interpretations of men or the traditions of men. We don't read things and then start reading things into them and different things like that. People could do that. Right. We obviously in Judaism, we do this a lot. We have a tradition of understanding of how to understand the Bible. But for people that are generally, and I know the Christian faith very well, that are sola scriptura, it doesn't even make sense for people to come up with some of the conclusions that they come up with. So I did do a complete and full podcast. I think it's maybe, if you got like an hour and 20 minutes of me going through this, the church history and the beginning of Protestantism and the relationship and when things actually turned and what the relationship was and then what it became. You could go and check that out. But I want to play this guy because he just, he makes a lot of sense. Even for me as a person, like I said, I'm not a Christian, but to hear a person, this is common sense. And this is in line with the Bible that people are reading, as opposed to these ideas that people are using, not because they're genuine, because they're only trying to get behind, to infiltrate, to be able to separate Israel from the United States.
I unequivocally stand with the nation of Israel because I stand with God. I stand with Israel as every Christian should, because I stand with God. And the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, from when he made a covenant with Abraham, he made a covenant with Abraham and said, I will make you a great nation, and through you all the people of the world will be blessed. The Abrahamic covenant, and he did it, and he gave Moses the 10 Commandments, and he blessed the whole world through the 10 Commandments and through Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ came through the Jewish line. He blessed the whole world through the Jewish people. And yet people who are Christians turn on him because they're full of racism and hatred and fake patriotism. They love the country more than they do the God of the Bible. Let me tell you one thing. I don't love this country more than I love God. It's not even close. It's not even close. I don't worship the American flag. I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful for all our country and its freedoms. But I love somebody way more, and his name is Jesus Christ. So I stand with Israel because I stand with God. And if you don't stand with Israel, I'm not saying you got to agree with everything they do. I don't say you have to agree with everything they do. You don't have to agree with everything they do. But you have to stand with Israel because God stands with Israel. Do you hear what I said? If you don't, if you disagree with this, you're disagreeing with the word of God.
It kind of reminds me of growing up, Growing up, you had family members that sometimes, brother, sister, whatever the case is, get themselves in trouble. And really, it's your brother, your sister. So the truth of the matter is that, when we get home, it's on. But I'm not going to, in front of everybody else, you know what I'm saying, turn against you or get on your side, whatever. At least that's what I'm picking up. But I think that this has been an important thing to say. Just because a lot of what's been going on, if you look at feminism, to the new masculinity, to all these other things I've been discussing, like these things are happening as an overreaction. As Ben said, Christians are under attack. White Christian males in general have been under attack by the left for a long time. So then the overreaction is the Groypers and the Nick Fuenteses, right? And so then there's always this overreaction. Okay, so there's equality and race and different things like that. Granted, a lot of this happened more so many years ago. America has been a great place to live for people of color for many, many years. And I come from Seattle, so I almost don't even know what people are talking about over there because everything's PC, politically correct, and always been, overly swinging in our favor, at least in the Pacific Northwest, where I came from. However, there's been always an overreaction. So then we start talking about equality, and then let's talk about now the LGBT rights. Let's push everybody under the door of whatever it is that we're talking about. And then you have this overreaction of everything coming from the other side. And so people have to be very, very careful of that. And the way to combat these things is to be sound, to be connected to God. And whichever way that you're connected to God, to be connected with God and to be able to be one with him and to be able to be looking always for the truth and to be grounded on the foundation of truth. Because if not, the war will be lost. The war would just definitely be lost. And I think that that's why Ben is so on fire the way that he is about this right now. Another thing he actually said in that interview was that by him, since he was 17 years old, he's been doing this. Ben is in his early 40s. Right, and I know Ben, sweet guy. One thing that he said that you could say on him, and this is important, what you could say on yourself, right? Since I was 17 years old, nobody's going to come, nor has he ever heard somebody ever tell him that, wow, your opinions really changed, Ben. You really changed over the years. He says, cannot be said about a person like Tucker Carlson or Candace or many of these other people. So when it comes to truth, search for it. Be founded on it. Until next time, remember, serve God or to live trying. I'm out. I don't have to tell you that in our fast-paced lives, we rarely stop to just breathe, to reconnect ourselves with Hashem and with our purpose. And that's why I'm really excited to tell you about Kavana, an incredible new app that helps bring mindfulness and Jewish spirituality into everyday life. It's filled with guided meditations, music, sleep stories, quick 1-minute pauses, and daily inspiration, all designed to help you live with more Kavana, with more intention, more presence, and more meaning. And right here on the Kavana app, I'll be releasing a brand new guided Heat Buddha series, a powerful journey into personal prayer and connection with the Creator. So go download the Kavana app today, sign up, and join me for the course.